I'm an old man now, 74 come November, and my hands shake when I try to write. The words come out crooked on the page. Letters that used to march straight now wander like cattle without a drover. Martha says I should just tell the stories out loud, let her write them down. But this one's mine to put on paper. This story needs my hand on it, shaky or not. It's about the day a woman stepped off the train in Silver Creek and changed everything. Not just for Kieran Knox, though Lord knows she changed him most of all. But for this whole valley, this town, the land itself, even for me and Martha, if I'm being honest. When you witness something like what I witnessed, it marks you, shapes how you see the world after. I can still see her standing on that platform. September 1878, 37 years ago this month, white knuckles on a worn valise, navy dress that had seen better days but was pressed neat as Sunday, and her chin up, even though her eyes told you she was scared near to death. What she didn't know, what none of us knew that day, was that she'd come to the wrong place for the wrong man, and somehow found the right life anyway. That's how it goes sometimes in this country. The land has a way of putting people where they're meant to be, even when they think they're lost. I've seen it happen more than once, but never quite like this. Martha's been after me for years to write this down. You're the only one left who knows it true, she says, and she's right. Kieran's been gone 5 years now, died peaceful in his sleep. Annabelle beside him like always. She followed him 6 months later. Couldn't bear to be without him, we all said. Though the doctor called it her heart giving out. Their children run the ranch now. Fine people, James and Elizabeth. Got their parents' best qualities. His sense of duty, her love of learning. But they never knew the whole story. How their mother came here desperate, and their father saved her without meaning to. How love grew in the spaces between work and worry, between nightmares and morning coffee. So I'm writing it down, before these old hands give out entirely, before the memories fade any more than they already have. This is the true story, not the legend that's grown up around it, not the romance folks tell at quilting bees and around dinner tables. The real thing, with all its rough edges and hard truths. The story of how a mail-order bride who never made it to her intended groom found something better than she'd bargained for. And how a broken soldier learned to build a life worth living. It started on a Tuesday, hot for September, I remember. The kind of day where the sun sits heavy on your shoulders and sweat runs down your back just from standing still. I was in town for supplies, didn't know I was about to witness the beginning of everything. The morning started ordinary enough. I'd ridden into Silver Creek before dawn to beat the heat, my list from Martha folded in my shirt pocket. 20 pounds of flour, coffee beans, sewing thread, and a new hammer handle. The old one had cracked during fence repair, and Kieran, Mr. Knox, I should say, though he never stood on formality with me, had told me to get a good one this time. Don't buy the cheapest, Jacob, he'd have said. Buy the one that'll last. That was Kieran, always thinking 10 years ahead. The town was just waking up when I tied my horse outside Carson's Feed and Grain. Silver Creek wasn't much to look at back then, a wide dirt street lined with false front buildings that made everything look bigger than it was. 2 saloons, a hotel, general store, blacksmith, doctor's office, and the church at the far end of town like an afterthought. The train station sat at the east edge where the tracks cut through on their way from Denver to points west. 2 trains a day, one in the morning, one at dusk. Regular as clockwork, which was more than you could say for most things in those days. I was loading flour sacks into my wagon when I heard the whistle, long and low, echoing off the mountains. The morning train, right on time. Now I didn't have any particular reason to walk down to the station. My business was at the feed store, not the platform. But something pulled me that direction. Call it curiosity. Call it the hand of Providence. Call it whatever you like. Point is, I went. And that's where I first saw her. She stood alone on the platform as the other passengers scattered. The train was already pulling away, steam billowing up around her like she was appearing out of a cloud. She clutched a single valise in both hands, knuckles white against the worn leather. She stood out. That's the first thing I noticed, not just the city dress, though that was part of it. Navy blue with black trim, good fabric, but not new. Practical traveling clothes, not fancy. No, it was the way she held herself. Scared, but dignified. Lost, but refusing to show it. She had dark hair pinned up under a small hat. Gray eyes that swept the platform, searching for someone. Young, maybe 25, 26. Prettier than most, I suppose, though I've never been good at judging such things. What struck me was her expression, like she was standing at the edge of a cliff trying to decide whether to jump or turn back. Only there wasn't any turning back. I could see that in her face. She set her valise down, smoothed her skirts, and waited. Watched the last passengers drift away toward town. Checked a piece of paper in her hand, a letter maybe, or an address. Looked up again, searching. Nobody came. I stayed back near the station house, pretending to examine a posting for a barn dance. Didn't want to make her nervous by staring, but I watched. That's when the trouble started. The sound came first. Raised voices from the freight office. Then Kieran Knox appeared around the corner of the station house, and I knew someone was about to catch hell. The boss stood over 6 feet tall with shoulders broad enough to fill a doorway. Dark hair pushed back under his brown Stetson. Blue eyes that could cut through a man when he was angry. And he was angry that morning. Furious, actually. He moved like a thunderstorm coming across the prairie, all contained energy looking for somewhere to break. "I don't care what your ledger says," his voice boomed across the platform. "Those cattle were promised for yesterday's train. My men have been waiting since dawn." The station master scurried after him, little man with spectacles perched on his nose, trying to calm a situation that was well past calming. "Mr. Knox, I understand your frustration. Do you?" Kieran stopped, turned. The station master nearly ran into him. "Do you understand what it costs me to have 8 men standing idle? What it means to my operation when supplies don't arrive as scheduled? The telegram states what some fool in Denver decided, not what was agreed upon." Kieran's hand came down on the freight counter hard enough to rattle the inkwell. "I want those cattle on tomorrow's train, or I'll be speaking to someone higher up than you about broken contracts." A couple of nearby women gasped and moved away. That was Kieran's reputation in town. Hard man, quick temper, not one for polite company. Most folks gave him a wide berth when he was in a mood, but I knew better. I'd worked for his father, and now for him for 17 years. Kieran Knox's anger was like a summer storm, loud and fierce, but usually over quick, and almost always justified. The station master was sputtering excuses when I noticed the woman watching. She'd picked up her valise and moved closer, like she was trying to see around Kieran's broad back. Looking for someone to ask for help, maybe, or just trying to figure out if this angry rancher was the man she was supposed to meet. I nearly laughed at the thought. Kieran Knox and a mail-order bride? Not likely. Though I didn't know then what I know now. Didn't know she'd come here hoping for exactly that, a Western husband met through correspondence. Didn't know her heart was probably hammering in her chest as she wondered if this tall, furious man was her future. She must have been terrified. The argument ended like most of Kieran's arguments did, with the other person agreeing to do exactly what he wanted, just to make him go away. The station master promised to send another telegram, to personally ensure the cattle arrived tomorrow, to sacrifice his firstborn if necessary. Kieran gave a curt nod and turned to leave. That's when he saw her. Just for a second their eyes met. She was standing maybe 10 feet away, still clutching that valise, and he nearly walked right past her. But something made him pause. Maybe the look on her face. Maybe just good manners his mother had beaten into him. He touched the brim of his hat. "Ma'am?" She opened her mouth like she was going to say something, ask him something. But then she seemed to think better of it and just nodded back. Kieran walked on, heading for the street where I knew he'd tied his horse. And the woman went back to waiting. I should have left then, should have minded my own business and gotten back to my supply run. But that uneasy feeling in my gut was getting stronger. Something wasn't right about this picture. City woman alone on a frontier platform, nobody coming to meet her, searching every face that passed. That's when I saw Tobias Murphy. The boy was 12 years old, all freckles and elbows, wearing a hat 3 sizes too big. He worked odd jobs around town, sweeping the general store, running errands, doing whatever needed doing. Good kid, though simple as a fence post. He walked right up to the woman, and I was close enough now to hear. "Miss Porter?" His voice cracked on the words. She turned so fast she nearly dropped her valise. Yes, that's me." Relief flooded her face. I could see her whole body relax. Finally, someone had come. "Mr. Harrington sent me to fetch you." Tobias twisted his hands, nervous. "I'm Tobias. I work at the general store." The relief flickered. Just a bit. "Mr. Harrington himself couldn't come?" "No, ma'am. Well, he wants you to meet him at the store." Tobias reached for her valise before she could protest. "It's just up the street, not far." She hesitated. I could see her thinking, this wasn't the welcome she'd expected. No husband-to-be waiting with flowers. Just a boy sent to fetch her like a package from the freight office. But what choice did she have? "Lead on, Tobias," she said. Her voice had a Boston accent, educated, refined. The kind of voice that didn't belong in Silver Creek, Colorado. They started toward town, and I followed. Told myself I was just heading that direction anyway. Had business at the general store, after all, but truth was, that uneasy feeling wouldn't let me walk away. Something about this woman. Something about the set of her shoulders, the way she kept her chin up, even though I could see the fear in her eyes. I wanted to know what happened next. Harrington's general store stood in the center of town, right where the main street widened out. Big windows displaying everything from boots to bolts of fabric. Gerald Harrington had run it for 15 years, taken it over from his father, did good business, sold everything a frontier town needed at prices that were almost fair. I'd never much liked him. Something about the softness of his hands, the way his smile never quite reached his eyes. But he was a fixture in Silver Creek, respectable, a businessman. The bell jangled as Tobias pushed open the door. The woman, Miss Porter, he'd called her, followed him inside. I waited a beat, then followed myself. Figured I'd look at pickaxe handles or something while I observed. Gerald was behind the counter wiping his hands on his apron. He looked up when they entered, and I saw his expression change. Not happiness exactly, more like resignation, mixed with something that might have been guilt. "Ah," he said, "you must be Miss Porter." He came around the counter, thin man, close to 50, with receding hair and a paunch starting to show under that apron. When he extended his hand for a shake, I noticed his palms were soft as a baby's bottom. "Welcome to Silver Creek," he said. She took his hand, and I saw her trying to hide surprise. This was the man she'd come all this way to marry. You could see her thinking it. He was older than she'd expected, softer, nothing like the romantic figure she'd probably imagined from his letters. "Thank you for arranging my passage, Mr. Harrington." Her voice stayed steady, polite. "Your letters were most kind." Gerald's smile flickered. "Yes, well, about that." And there it was, the moment I'd been dreading without knowing why. "There's been a slight change of plans, you see." He wouldn't meet her eyes. "My sister arrived unexpectedly from St. Louis last month. She's staying with me now, keeping house and such." I watched Miss Porter's face, watched understanding dawn, then disbelief, then something that looked like the ground opening up beneath her feet. "I don't understand," she said. But she did. I could see she did. "What I'm saying, Miss Porter, is that my circumstances have changed." Gerald's voice took on a practiced quality, like he'd rehearsed this. "I no longer require a wife. I've arranged a room for you at the boarding house for tonight. Tomorrow you can take the train back east. I'll cover the fare, of course." The blood drained from her face. She swayed just slightly, like she might faint. But she didn't. She locked her knees and stood straighter, But I sold everything to come here." Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "I have nowhere to return to." Gerald shrugged, actually shrugged, like her desperation was mildly inconvenient but not his problem. "I'm sorry for your troubles, Miss Porter, but a man has to do what's best for his family. My sister needs me more than I need a wife." "You advertised for a bride." Her voice was getting stronger now, anger cutting through the shock. "I responded in good faith. We corresponded for months. And now I'm offering you a free ticket home. Many would consider that generous." His tone hardened. I'd heard that tone before, Gerald Harrington done with a conversation, ready to move on to the next customer. The tone that said you were dismissed. "Tobias," he called over his shoulder, "take Miss Porter's bag to Mrs. Wilkins' boarding house." I stood there by the pickaxe handles, anger building in my chest. This was wrong. Cold and cruel and wrong. The woman had traveled 2,000 miles based on this man's promise, and he was throwing her away like last week's newspaper. Miss Porter stood frozen, the humiliation burning in her cheeks, the panic I could see rising in her chest, threatening to break through that dignified exterior. Gerald turned back to his ledger, dismissing her as easily as if she were a traveling salesman he wasn't interested in. That's when the bell jangled again. Harrington. Kieran Knox's deep voice filled the store. "I need 20 pounds of nails and new wire cutters. The ones you sold me last month are already broken." He stopped mid-sentence. His eyes went from Gerald to Miss Porter to me and back again, reading the room the way a good rancher reads weather, instinctively, accurately. "Didn't mean to interrupt," he said. Gerald brightened like he'd been thrown a rope. "Not at all, Knox. Just finishing up here. I'll get your order ready." But Kieran wasn't looking at Gerald anymore. His gaze had settled on Miss Porter's face, on her flushed cheeks and overbright eyes, on the way she was holding herself together through sheer force of will. "Everything all right, ma'am?" he asked. "Perfectly fine," she said, but her voice cracked on the words. Gerald hurried around the counter. "Miss Porter was just leaving. She's staying at the boarding house tonight before heading back east tomorrow." "Back east?" Kieran's eyebrows rose. "This the mail-order bride?" Miss Porter winced at the blunt description. I saw her chin come up higher, pride the only thing keeping her standing. "I was under that impression, yes," she said. Kieran turned to Gerald. The temperature in the store seemed to drop about 10 degrees. "You're sending her back?" "My sister arrived, as you know." Gerald's voice took on a wheedling quality. "No need for a wife now." "So you let this woman travel all the way from—" Kieran looked at Miss Porter. "Where are you from?" "Boston," she supplied. "All the way from Boston, only to turn her away the moment she arrives, after she sold everything she owns based on your promise." Gerald's face reddened. "It's not your concern, Knox. It becomes my concern when a man in my town behaves without honor." The words hung in the air, without honor. In a place like Silver Creek, them was fighting words. I moved slightly closer, ready to step in if fists started flying. But Kieran's anger was the cold kind now, controlled, dangerous in a different way. "This woman came here in good faith," he continued, his voice quiet but carrying an unmistakable edge. "And you're dismissing her like she's nothing. Offering a train ticket like that makes it right." "I'm offering fair compensation," Gerald protested. "Fair?" Kieran laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Fair would have been telling her before she left Boston. Fair would have been honoring your word. This?" He gestured between Gerald and Miss Porter. "This is cowardice." Miss Porter hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. She just stood there watching this stranger defend her honor while the man who'd promised to marry her cowered behind his counter. Kieran looked at her, really looked at her, took in her quality dress, her educated bearing, the proud way she held herself despite obvious distress. And that's when everything changed. "Miss Porter," he said suddenly, "are you still interested in becoming a wife in Silver Creek?" She blinked, confused. I came here with that intention, yes. Then I'd like to offer an alternative to returning east." He removed his hat. Thick, dark hair fell across his forehead. He looked younger suddenly, less intimidating. My housekeeper left 2 weeks ago to care for her sick mother back in Missouri. My ranch needs someone to manage the household. I'm offering you that position, fair wages for 3 months. If at the end of that time you wish to return east, I'll pay your fare. If you choose to stay in Silver Creek, you'll have had time to meet other potential suitors and decide your future on your own terms. The silence in the store was absolute. Gerald's mouth hung open. Tobias stared. I held my breath. Miss Porter searched Kieran's face, looking for the catch, the trap, the ulterior motive. "You would hire me as your housekeeper?" Her voice was steady now. "Without references, without knowing anything about my abilities? You were acceptable as Harrington's wife without him meeting you in person." A faint smile touched Kieran's lips. "I figure that's reference enough for housekeeping. Besides, I'm a fair judge of character, Miss Porter. You strike me as someone who doesn't give up easily." Gerald sputtered. "Now see here, Knox. I believe Miss Porter can make her own decisions," Kieran said, without looking at him. He kept his eyes on her, waiting, giving her the choice he was talking about. I watched her face, saw the calculations running behind those gray eyes. This wasn't what she'd come for. This wasn't the security of marriage she'd been promised. But it was something, a chance. Time to catch her breath and figure out what to do next. And this man, this stranger who'd just defended her to a room full of witnesses, was giving it to her without asking anything in return. "I accept your offer, Mr. Knox," she said firmly. The words came out strong, decided. No hesitation. "Though I should warn you," she added, and I caught a glimpse of humor in her eyes, "my cooking skills are limited to basics." Kieran's smile widened. It transformed his whole face, made him look less like a hard frontier rancher and more like a man who'd just found something he didn't know he was looking for. "We won't starve, Miss Porter. The important thing is that you'll have a fair chance here." He turned to Tobias, who'd been watching the whole exchange with wide eyes. "Tobias, take Miss Porter's bag to my wagon instead. It's tied out front." Gerald's face had turned an alarming shade of purple. "You can't just—" "I believe I just did," Kieran said mildly. He picked his hat back up, settled it on his head. "About those nails, Harrington." I followed them outside, couldn't help myself. In all my years working for the Knox family, I'd never seen Kieran do something that impulsive. Hell, I'd never seen him do anything impulsive at all. The man planned everything, thought 10 steps ahead, made decisions with the same care he used selecting breeding stock. And here he was, offering employment to a complete stranger. A city woman who probably didn't know which end of a cow gave milk. Taking her to his ranch where he lived alone, except for the hands who bunked separate. The town was going to talk. Lord, how they were going to talk. Kieran's wagon stood in front of the store. Nothing fancy, just a work wagon with 2 horses in the traces. He helped Miss Porter up onto the seat with a hand at her elbow, then climbed up himself. I stood by my own wagon, pretending to check the flour sacks, watching. "They'll talk," Kieran said to her, not asking, just stating fact. "What will they say?" Her voice was calmer now, steadier. He glanced at her, and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Recognition. "They'll say Kieran Knox just claimed Gerald Harrington's mail-order bride for himself." His expression grew serious. "But you should know, Miss Porter, that while you're under my roof, you'll be treated with nothing but respect. You have my word on that." She looked at him for a long moment, studying his face. Then she nodded. "I believe you," she said, and I could hear the surprise in her voice, like she hadn't expected to believe him, but found she did anyway. "And please," she added, "call me Annabelle." "Annabelle?" he repeated. The name sounded different in his deep voice, like he was testing how it felt. "Welcome to Silver Creek, then, though I suspect your arrival wasn't quite what you'd imagined." "No," she agreed, "but perhaps that's not entirely a bad thing." I saw her shoulders straighten, saw her look out at the dusty street, the false front buildings, the mountains rising purple in the distance, taking it all in, this place that was going to be her home now, at least for 3 months. Kieran clicked to the horses, and the wagon rolled forward. As they passed my position, he caught my eye, gave me a look that said clear as words, "Not one damn comment, Jacob." I kept my face neutral, touched my hat brim, watched them head out of town toward the ranch, and I thought, boss, you just changed your whole life, and you don't even know it yet. I finished my supply run quick after that. Couldn't focus on hammers and flour with my mind spinning. Kieran Knox and a mail-order bride. Well, housekeeper. But still. The ranch was 3 miles outside town, following Silver Creek upstream to where the land opened up into prime grazing. I knew that road better than I knew my own face. I'd ridden it nearly every day for 17 years. Today, I took my time. Gave them enough distance that it wouldn't look like I was following. But I was following. Of course I was. Martha was going to want to know everything. And beyond that, I needed to see this play out. Needed to witness whatever came next. That pull I'd felt at the train station hadn't let go. If anything, it was stronger now. The afternoon sun beat down hot on my shoulders. Grasshoppers jumped from the road ahead of my wagon. In the distance, I could see the dust from Kieran's wagon settling back to earth. I thought about the look on Annabelle Porter's face when Harrington dismissed her. The humiliation, the fear, the way she'd pulled herself together through sheer force of will. I thought about Kieran's face when he'd intervened. Not pity, not attraction, though she was pretty enough. Something else. Justice. Rightness. The same look he got when one of the hands tried to shortchange another at cards, or when a neighbor needed help bringing in hay before a storm. Kieran Knox had a strong sense of what was right and what wasn't. His father had raised him that way, and the war had reinforced it. Do the right thing, whatever the cost, even if the right thing meant taking in a strange woman and setting the whole town talking. The ranch came into view as I crested the last hill. 5,000 acres of the best grazing land in the valley. The main house sat solid and square, 2 stories of log and stone built by Kieran's father 30 years back. Barn and outbuildings scattered around it, corrals full of horses, cattle dotting the distant pastures. It was a good spread. A successful operation, the kind of place that could support a family, had supported a family once, before Kieran's mother died when he was 20, before his father followed her 5 years ago. Now it was just Kieran and us hands, rattling around in all that space. Kieran's wagon was already at the house. I could see him helping Annabelle down, gesturing toward the door. Showing her inside, I figured. I drove my wagon to the barn to unload. Took my time with it. Let them have whatever conversation they needed to have without me hovering. But I was thinking. Couldn't help it. That house had been empty of a woman's presence for 12 years. Mrs. Knox, Kieran's mother, she'd been the heart of it, made it warm and welcoming. When she died, something went out of the place. Mr. Knox had tried to keep it up, but he wasn't built for domestics. And after he passed, Kieran had hired Mrs. Finch. Good woman, Mrs. Finch. Efficient, clean, cooked decent meals. But she'd never made it a home again, just kept it functional. And 2 weeks ago, she'd gotten word her own mother was sick, back in Missouri. Needed caring for. Might be months, might be permanent. Kieran had told her to go, paid her through the end of the year even though she was leaving. That was like him, generous to a fault and with people who'd been loyal. But it left him alone in that big house, eating cold suppers and letting dust collect in corners. Now here came Annabelle Porter, city-bred, educated, running from whatever had driven her to answer a mail-order bride advertisement in the first place. I didn't know what was going to happen, didn't have any predictions or expectations, but I knew I was going to watch it unfold because something had started today, something bigger than just a woman needing a job and a man needing a housekeeper. I'd seen the way they looked at each other in that store, not romantic, not yet, but something, recognition. Like 2 people who'd been traveling separate roads suddenly realizing they were heading the same direction. The sun was starting its slide toward the western peaks when I finally headed to the house. I had news to deliver. The cattle Kieran had been waiting for would arrive tomorrow after all. Station master had caved completely. As I approached the porch, I could smell something cooking, hear movement in the kitchen. The house already felt different, more alive somehow. I knocked even though I usually just walked in. "Come," Kieran's voice called. I found them in the kitchen, Annabelle at the stove, sleeves rolled up, hair coming slightly loose from its pins. Kieran at the table, watching her with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Station master confirmed," I said. "Cattle arrive tomorrow morning." "Good." Kieran nodded. "That's good." Annabelle turned from the stove. "Mr. Miller, isn't it? I'm Annabelle Porter." She extended her hand like she was meeting an equal, not a hired hand. An equal. I shook it. "Ma'am, welcome to the Knox Ranch." "Thank you." She smiled and it reached her eyes. "I hope I can live up to Mr. Knox's faith in hiring me." "I'm sure you'll do fine," I said. And I meant it. Looking at her standing there in that kitchen, chin still up, eyes still scared but determined, I thought, this woman's got steel in her spine. She was going to need it. I left them to their supper and headed back to the cabin I shared with Martha near the bunkhouse. She was waiting on the porch, mending in her lap, eyes sharp with curiosity. "Well?" she said before I'd even dismounted. "Well what?" "Don't you play innocent with me, Jacob Miller. The whole town's buzzing about Kieran Knox and the mail-order bride. Mrs. Henderson saw them leaving together, said he had her in his wagon heading this direction." I sighed, tied up my horse, climbed the steps to sit beside my wife. "Her name's Annabelle Porter," I said, "and she's not his bride. She's his housekeeper." I told her the whole story. The train platform, Harrington's rejection, Kieran's intervention, the offer, all of it. Martha listened without interrupting. That was one of her gifts, knowing when to be quiet and let a story unfold. When I finished, she set down her mending. "A housekeeper," she said. "Living alone with Kieran in that big house." That's what I said. "And you believe that's all it is? All it will be?" I looked at my wife, thought about lying, decided against it. "I don't know what it is," I admitted. "But I saw something today, Martha, in that store, the way he defended her, the way she looked at him. Something—" "Something what?" "Something that matters. I can't explain it better than that." Martha picked up her mending again, smiled that small smile she got when she'd figured something out before I had. "Well," she said, "I suppose we'll see." "See what?" "Whether that man finally lets himself want something besides this ranch." I thought about that. About Kieran Knox, 32 years old, alone in a house meant for a family. Working dawn to dusk like he was running from something. Never courting, never even looking at the available women in town. "You think—" I started. "I think," Martha interrupted, "that sometimes the Lord puts people exactly where they need to be. Even when they don't know they need to be there." She patted my hand. "Now come inside. Supper's getting cold." I followed her in, but I stood at the window for a moment, looking across the yard toward the main house. Lights were on in the kitchen, warm and golden against the gathering dusk. And I thought about a woman who'd come to Silver Creek for the wrong man. Maybe, just maybe, she'd found the right one by accident. That first night, I didn't sleep much. Kept thinking about what I'd witnessed. Kept wondering if Kieran knew what he'd gotten himself into. He'd made decisions in a heartbeat that most men would have pondered for weeks. Martha slept sound beside me, but I lay awake listening to the creek water running past our cabin. Same sound I'd fallen asleep to for 17 years. Usually it calmed me. Tonight, it just gave my mind something to work against while it spun. Around midnight, I got up. Stood at the window looking toward the main house. A lamp still burned in the kitchen. I could see shadows moving. Kieran pacing, probably. That's what he did when his mind wouldn't settle. Wore paths in the floorboards, thinking through problems. What was he thinking now? What had he seen in that general store that made him offer shelter to a complete stranger? I watched until the lamp finally went dark. Then I went back to bed. But sleep didn't come easy. Dawn broke clear and cool. September mornings in Colorado have a bite to them, even when the afternoons run hot. I was up before the sun, same as always, had cattle to check and that fence line that needed mending before winter. But first, I wanted to see how things stood at the main house. I walked over as the sky was turning from black to gray. Smoke already rising from the kitchen chimney. Someone was up early. I knocked on the back door, heard footsteps, then it opened. Annabelle stood there, still in her traveling dress from yesterday. Hair pinned up, sleeves rolled to her elbows, flour dusted across her front. "Mr. Miller," she said, "you're up early?" "Ranch hours, ma'am. Sun comes up, we're already working," she smiled. Looked tired, but determined. "Then I'd better get used to ranch hours. I'm attempting biscuits. I hope you and the men will join us for breakfast." Behind her I could see the kitchen transformed. Counters wiped clean. Dishes from last night washed and stacked. Coffee pot already bubbling on the stove. "The hands usually eat at the bunkhouse," I said. "But I'll spread the word. They'll be grateful for a hot meal." "Good," she nodded. "Because I've made enough to feed an army. I wasn't sure how many to expect." I heard boots on the stairs. Kieran appeared, buttoning his shirt. Stopped when he saw me. "Jacob, morning." "Boss, just letting you know those cattle should arrive on the 11 o'clock train. I'll take Billy and Alan to help bring them up." "Good. He paused, looked at Annabelle. "Unless you need help with anything here." "I'm managing fine," she said, "though I may need direction on where things are stored." "Right, of course." He seemed uncertain, like he didn't quite know how to navigate this new situation. "I'll show you the root cellar after breakfast." An awkward silence settled. We all stood there, Annabelle at the stove, Kieran half-dressed in the doorway, me with my hat in my hands. Finally, I cleared my throat. "I'll go round up the boys. What time should we come?" 20 minutes, Annabelle suggested. "We'll be here." I left them to their awkwardness and headed for the bunkhouse. The hands were just rolling out of their bunks when I pushed through the door. 8 men in various states of wakefulness. Some I'd worked with for years. Others were newer hires. "Listen up," I said. "Miss Porter's cooking breakfast at the main house. You're all invited. Clean shirts, clean hands, and mind your manners." That got their attention. Billy Wheeler sat up, straw from his mattress stuck in his red hair. "The mail-order bride's cooking for us?" "She's the housekeeper," I corrected. "And yes, so wash your faces and get presentable. We leave in 15 minutes. Grumbling and speculation followed me out the door. I didn't care what they said amongst themselves. They'd behave proper at that table or answer to me. Back at my cabin, Martha was up and making her own breakfast. "Going to the main house?" she asked. "Miss Porter invited the hands. Wants to cook for everyone." Martha's eyebrows rose. Brave of her. First full day and she's feeding 8 ranch hands she's never met? Seems determined to prove herself. Good. Martha poured coffee. She'll need that determination. This valley doesn't make things easy for outsiders. I knew she was right. Silver Creek was a close community, suspicious of newcomers, especially ones who arrived under unusual circumstances. By now, half the town probably knew about Annabelle Porter. By tonight, the other half would. And the talk would only get worse. 20 minutes later, I led 7 clean-faced, uncomfortable-looking cowboys across the yard to the main house. Alan Peterson had the night shift and was still out with the cattle. The rest shuffled along behind me like schoolboys called to recite. The kitchen table had been set for 10. Plates, forks, napkins, coffee cups at each place, biscuits piled high in the center, butter and jam beside them, bacon sizzling on the stove, eggs scrambled in a big iron skillet. It smelled like heaven. The men filed in, removing their hats, standing awkward until Kieran gestured them to sit. "Don't be shy," he said. "Miss Porter's gone to considerable trouble." Annabelle brought the bacon and eggs to the table, smiled at each man as she served. "Please, eat while it's hot. I'm Annabelle Porter, and I'm terrible with names, so you'll have to be patient with me." That broke the ice. The men started eating, tentatively at first, then with real enthusiasm. Cowboys are simple. Feed them well, and they're yours. Billy spoke first, around a mouthful of biscuit. "These are real good, ma'am." "Thank you, Billy." She'd already learned his name. "My grandmother's recipe." The others chimed in with agreement. Kieran ate quietly, watching her move around the kitchen, refilling coffee, bringing more bacon, playing hostess like she'd been doing it for years instead of hours. I watched too, watched her win them over one biscuit at a time. When breakfast ended, the men stood, mumbled thanks, filed out looking more cheerful than they had coming in. Billy lingered at the door. "Will you be cooking regular, Miss Porter?" "If Mr. Knox wants me to, yes." Billy looked at Kieran with pleading eyes. Kieran fought a smile. "I think that can be arranged." After they left, Annabelle started clearing plates. Kieran stood to help. "You don't have to," she began. "My mother raised me to clean up my own messes," he said, "and I've been doing it long enough that I'm not about to stop now." They worked in silence, washing, drying, putting away, moving around each other in that small kitchen like they were learning a new dance. I should have left, should have gotten to work. But I stood on the porch watching through the window, watching them find their rhythm. That was the first breakfast, the first of many. Over the next 2 weeks, a routine established itself. Annabelle rose before dawn, made coffee and breakfast, fed whoever was around. Then she turned to the house. Room by room, she battled dust and disorder, found things that had been lost or forgotten, brought order to chaos. The house started to feel different, cleaner, yes, but more than that, lived in, cared for, like it was waking up from a long sleep. I watched it happen, watched Kieran notice it happening, saw him pause sometimes in doorways, looking around like he was seeing his own home for the first time. Martha visited on the 3rd day, brought bread and welcome, offered friendship. Annabelle accepted both gratefully. "She's lonely," Martha told me that night, "scared, though she hides it well. Doesn't know if she's made a terrible mistake coming here." "Has she?" I asked. Martha smiled. "Too early to tell. But I like her, Jacob. She's got backbone." On Sunday they went to church. I wasn't there that morning, had a sick calf that needed tending. But Martha went, and she told me everything after. The church sat at the end of Silver Creek's main street. White clapboard building with a steeple that could be seen for miles, held maybe 60 people when it was full. That Sunday, it was packed. Word had spread about Kieran Knox's new housekeeper. Everyone wanted a look. Martha said they walked in together, Kieran tall and serious in his Sunday suit, Annabelle in a simple gray dress. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned. Catherine Harrington sat in the front pew, Gerald's sister from St. Louis, the woman who'd displaced Annabelle without ever meeting her. Martha said Catherine's face went pinched and sour when she saw them. Kieran guided Annabelle to the Knox family pew, 3rd row, right side, his hand at her back, just a brief touch, but everyone saw it. During the service, hymn singing. Martha said Kieran had a fine voice when he chose to use it, deep and true. Annabelle looked surprised to hear it, looked up at him with something like wonder. After, the congregation filed out. Women clustered on the church steps, talking, men gathered by the wagons. The social sorting that happened every Sunday. Martha made sure to greet Annabelle, introduced her to other women. Some were polite, some were cold. Catherine Harrington turned her back entirely. But the worst was the whispers, just loud enough to be heard. Living unchaperoned with a man. Calling it employment, but we all know. City woman playing respectable, Martha said. Annabelle's cheeks burned. But her chin stayed up. She didn't flinch, didn't cry, just thanked people for their welcome, cold as it was, and walked with Kieran back to his wagon. On the ride home, Martha heard later from Kieran himself. Annabelle asked, "Do they all think the worst of me?" "Probably," Kieran said. He'd never been one to soften truth. "Small town, not much happens. People talk. And does it bother you, what they say?" "Not even a little bit. I know what's true, so do you. The rest is just noise." Martha said that seemed to settle her, the fact that he didn't care, that he believed in her propriety even if no one else did. That Sunday set the pattern. Every week after, they went to church together, sat in that same pew, weathered the stares and whispers, and slowly, very slowly, some of those whispers changed. The library was where things shifted, where I saw the first real crack in Kieran's armor. I wasn't supposed to see it, wasn't supposed to be there at all. But I'd come to the house looking for Kieran, needed to ask about moving cattle to the north pasture, found the house quiet, assumed he was in the barn. Then I heard voices from the study. I should have announced myself, should have knocked. Instead, I stood in the hallway and listened. Sometimes you learn more from what people say when they think they're alone. My mother's collection, Kieran was saying. She taught at the school before marrying my father, believed every child deserved to read. My father believed the same. Annabelle's voice was soft, emotional. He was a professor of literature, Boston College. Was? A pause, then. He died 6 months ago. I heard movement, imagined Kieran stepping closer, his voice gentled. I'm sorry, Annabelle. He'd been sick for almost a year. Cancer. The doctors couldn't do anything. Her voice wavered. I read to him every night. Dickens mostly. He loved Dickens. Even at the end, when he could barely speak, he'd smile when I read the funny parts. Silence. Just the sound of pages turning. After he died, the debts came. She continued like she needed to say it out loud, needed someone to hear. The medical bills, the funeral costs. His salary had stopped months before. I sold everything, furniture, mother's jewelry, his books. God, selling his books nearly killed me, but it wasn't enough. That's when you answered Harrington's advertisement. Yes. It seemed like salvation. A respectable man seeking a wife, passage paid. I thought, she laughed, bitter. I thought I could trade companionship for security, start over somewhere. No one knew me as the poor professor's daughter. And instead you ended up as a housekeeper on a Colorado ranch. Yes. A pause. I'm sorry. You didn't hire me to hear my troubles. I didn't hire you at all, Kieran said. I offered you a choice. There's a difference. More silence. I imagined them standing there among his mother's books. Two people who'd lost parents they loved. Two people carrying grief they didn't talk about. Keep any books you want, Kieran said finally. For your room. My mother would have liked that. She'd have liked you. You can't know that. You don't know me. I know enough. You're educated. You value learning. You work hard. You're brave enough to travel 2,000 miles on a promise. He paused. And you read Dickens to your dying father. That tells me plenty. I heard footsteps coming toward the door, ducked back quick, pretended I was just arriving. Kieran appeared in the hallway, stopped when he saw me. Jacob, need something? Just wanted to ask about moving cattle, but it can wait. He studied my face, knew I'd heard, didn't say anything about it. Tomorrow's fine for the cattle. Use your judgment on which pasture. I nodded, started to leave, then turned back. Boss, your mother would have liked her. You're right about that. Kieran's expression softened. I know. Week 3 brought Alan Peterson and the injury that changed things. New hire. First day. Young kid, maybe 22, eager to prove himself. Too eager, as it turned out. I was in the barn when I heard the shouting. Ran out to find Alan on the ground, Billy kneeling beside him. The bay gelding that had thrown him standing nearby, ears pinned back, looking smug about it. Alan's left arm hung wrong, bone clearly broken, blood running down his face from a gash above his eyebrow. He was conscious, but pale as milk. Get the boss, I told Billy, and send someone for Doc Watson. But the doc was out at the Thompson place. Baby coming. Could be hours. Kieran came running, took one look at Alan, and said, We'll have to set it ourselves. Can't wait for Watson. Boss, I don't know if we should... Jacob, that bone needs setting now or it'll start healing wrong. He was right. I knew he was right. But I'd never set a break before. That's when Annabelle appeared. Must have heard the commotion from the house. She pushed through the men gathered around, looked down at Alan, didn't flinch. Bring him inside, she said, voice calm. Certain. Kitchen table. I'll need clean linens, whiskey, and my sewing kit. Ma'am, the doctor, Billy started, won't be here for hours. This can't wait. She looked at Kieran. I can set the arm and stitch the head wound, but I'll need help. "You've done this before?" Kieran asked. "My grandmother was a midwife. She taught me basic field medicine. I've set bones. Not many, but enough to know how." Kieran didn't hesitate. "Billy, you and Red carry him inside. Careful now." They got Alan on the kitchen table. He groaned, but stayed conscious. Annabelle had already gathered her supplies, moved with efficiency, no wasted motion. "The head wound first," she said. "Then the arm while he's still alert enough to help us." I watched her clean the gash, watched her thread the needle with steady hands, watched her make neat, even stitches while Alan gritted his teeth and swore. "Sorry," he muttered. "Don't apologize for being hurt," she said. "Just stay still." When the whiskey hit the open cut, Alan howled. Kieran held him steady, talked low and calm, same voice he used with spooked horses. Then came the arm. "We need to pull it straight while I guide the bone back into alignment," Annabelle explained. "It's going to hurt. A lot. Mr. Knox, can you—" "I've got him." Kieran positioned himself at Alan's shoulders, braced him. I took the broken arm, hands shaking. "On 3, Annabelle said. 1, 2, 3. I pulled. Alan screamed. Annabelle's fingers worked the bone. I felt it slip back into place with a grinding sensation that made my stomach turn. "Good. Hold it there." She splinted the arm with strips of wood and clean bandages, wrapped it tight. By the time she finished, Alan had passed out from the pain. Probably a mercy. We stood there in that kitchen, all of us sweating, blood on the table, the smell of whiskey sharp in the air. "You've done this before," Kieran said to Annabelle. Not a question. "Yes, but not often." She wiped her hands on her apron. They were shaking now, reaction setting in. "I hope I did it right." "You did fine," I said. "Better than fine." When Doc Watson arrived 3 hours later, he examined Alan, nodded approval. "Bones set proper, stitches are neat. Who did this?" "Miss Porter," Kieran said, pride in his voice. Doc Watson looked at Annabelle with new respect. "You've studied medicine?" "Just what my grandmother taught me. Folk remedies and frontier doctoring. Well, you've got a gift for it. If you're ever looking for work beyond housekeeping, I could use an assistant." She smiled. "Thank you, but I think I have enough work here." After the doctor left, after the hands had carried Alan to the bunkhouse to recover, Kieran found Annabelle in the kitchen. She was scrubbing blood from the table, hands still shaking. I was outside but close enough to hear through the window. "You're full of surprises, Annabelle Porter," he said. "Is that good or bad?" "Good. Very good." A pause. "Thank you for what you did today." "I just did what needed doing." "No. You did what most people couldn't. You stayed calm. You knew what to do. You saved that boy's arm. We saved it. Together." I heard something in those words, in the way she said "together," like it meant more than just setting a bone. Like maybe it meant something bigger. The storm came 4 nights later. I should have seen it coming. Should have read the signs. The air had that electric quality all day. Cattle restless, horses twitchy, sky turning that peculiar green that means trouble. But I was focused on work. Didn't think about what a storm might mean to Kieran. Didn't think about the war. Martha and I were in bed when the first thunder rolled across the valley. She stirred against me. "Storm's coming," she murmured. "Go back to sleep. It'll pass." But it didn't pass. It got worse. Lightning split the sky. Thunder followed, shaking our cabin. Rain came in sheets, hammering the roof. Wind screaming around the corners. I got up, stood at the window watching, making sure the barn was secure, making sure nothing was blowing away. That's when I saw the light in the main house. Not the steady glow of a lamp, the frantic movement of someone carrying one room to room. Then I heard it. Even over the storm, I heard it. A man's voice, shouting. I pulled on my boots and coat. "Stay here," I told Martha. "Jacob, just stay here." I ran through the rain to the main house, burst through the back door without knocking. Found Kieran on the floor of the kitchen, back against the wall, eyes wide and unseeing, shaking like a man with fever. Annabelle knelt in front of him, still in her nightgown with a shawl thrown over, hair loose around her shoulders, hands on his face trying to get him to look at her. "Kieran," she was saying. "Kieran, you're home. You're safe. Look at me. Come back." But he wasn't there. I could see it in his eyes. He was somewhere else, somewhere dark and terrible. "Incoming?" he shouted. "Get down! Artillery!" Thunder crashed. He flinched violently, pressed harder against the wall. "I'm here," Annabelle said, voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "You're not there anymore. You're home. Come back to me." I started forward. She held up a hand. "Stop." "Let me," she said. "I know what this is." She stayed kneeling, kept her voice low and calm, kept her hands on his face. "My father had this," she said, talking to Kieran, but loud enough for me to hear. "After Gettysburg, nightmares, confusion. Sometimes he'd wake up thinking he was still there, in the battle." Another crack of thunder. Kieran jerked. His hand went to his hip like reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. "Breathe," Annabelle commanded. "Listen to my voice. You're in your kitchen, your ranch, Silver Creek, Colorado. The year is 1878. The war is over. You survived. Slowly, so slowly, focus came back to his eyes. He looked at her, really saw her. "Annabelle?" His voice was rough, broken. "Yes, I'm here." He looked around, saw the kitchen, saw me standing in the doorway, reality flooding back, and with it, shame. "I'm sorry," he said. "Christ, I'm sorry. You shouldn't see me like this." "Why not?" Her hand stayed on his face, gentle but firm. "You think this makes you weak? It makes you human. It makes you a man who survived something terrible and carries the weight of it." I was in the battle of the wilderness. The words came out like confession, like poison he needed to expel. 18 years old, watched my friend die in my arms, watched him bleed out in the mud while I couldn't do anything, couldn't save him. Thunder rolled again, distant now, the storm moving east. Kieran flinched but didn't break. "I still see him," he continued, "every time I close my eyes, every time it storms. The artillery sounded like, thunder sounds like—" He couldn't finish. Annabelle pulled him into her arms, held him while he shook, while 17 years of held grief finally broke loose. I turned away, gave them privacy, walked back out into the rain. But I didn't go far. Stood on the porch, watched lightning flash in the distance. I'd known Kieran had served. Everyone knew that. But he never talked about it, never showed any sign beyond the occasional nightmare. The careful way he moved around loud noises, the tension in his shoulders when thunder came. Now I understood. Now I'd seen behind the mask. The war had broken something in him, something he'd been trying to fix or hide or live with for 17 years. And Annabelle Porter, this city woman who'd arrived 3 weeks ago, she'd seen it, recognized it, knew how to handle it, because she'd seen her own father carry the same wounds. The storm passed. The rain slowed to drizzle. Dawn couldn't be far off. I went back inside, found them sitting on the kitchen floor, backs against the wall, side by side. Not touching, but close. "Boss," I said, "you all right?" Kieran looked up, exhausted, embarrassed, but steady now. "I'm all right, Jacob. Thank you for coming. Want me to stay? Make coffee or something?" "No, go back to Martha. I'm sure she's worried." I looked at Annabelle. She nodded. "I'll stay with him. Make sure he's settled." As I walked back to my cabin, I thought about what I'd witnessed. The vulnerability, the trust, the way she'd held him without pity, with understanding. Martha was sitting up when I got back. "Well," I told her. "All of it." She listened, then said what I was thinking. That man just let her see his broken pieces. I know. And she didn't run. No, she didn't. Martha pulled me back into bed, wrapped her arms around me. "Jacob," she said into the darkness, "I think that woman loves him, even if she doesn't know it yet. Maybe. No, maybe about it. I saw them at church last Sunday, the way she looks at him when he's not watching. That's not gratitude. That's not obligation." I thought about Annabelle kneeling on that kitchen floor, hands on Kieran's face, bringing him back from whatever hell he'd been trapped in. "What about him?" I asked. "Oh, he's already gone," Martha said. "Has been since the day he brought her home. He just hasn't admitted it yet." We lay there in the dark, storm sounds fading, dawn getting closer, and I wondered what tomorrow would bring. What happened when two broken people started putting each other back together? Morning came too soon. I dragged myself out of bed feeling like I'd been kicked by a horse. The ranch didn't care if I'd had a rough night. Cattle still needed tending. Fences still needed mending. Work didn't stop for storms or revelations. I got to the barn just as Kieran was saddling his horse. He looked rough, dark circles under his eyes, moving slower than usual. "Morning?" I said. "Morning." We worked in silence. I didn't know what to say. Wasn't sure if I should acknowledge what I'd seen or pretend it hadn't happened. Kieran saved me the trouble. "About last night," he said, not looking at me, focused on the saddle cinch. "I'd appreciate it if—" "Already forgotten, boss." He glanced at me. "Jacob, I mean it. Between you, me, and the fence posts. Nobody else needs to know." Relief crossed his face. "Thank you. But boss, you know there's no shame in it. What you saw, what you carry. Half the men in this valley carry the same weight." "Maybe." He swung into the saddle. "But that doesn't make it easier to live with." He rode out before I could respond. I watched him go, thinking about what Martha had said, about him being gone for Annabelle already. If that was true, he was fighting it hard. That day set the tone for the week that followed. Awkward, tense, like everyone was walking on eggshells. Kieran threw himself into work. Left before dawn, came back after dark, avoided the house except to sleep, barely spoke to anyone. Annabelle went quiet too, focused on her tasks, cooked and cleaned and kept to herself. The easy rhythm they'd found those first weeks was gone. Martha visited midweek, came back shaking her head. "That girl's miserable," she told me. "Thinks she did something wrong. Thinks she overstepped by helping him during the storm." "Did you tell her different?" "Tried to. She's not hearing it. Says she should have left him alone, given him privacy." I swore under my breath. "They're both fools." "Most people in love are," Martha said. By Sunday, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. They went to church like always, sat in the same pew, but the space between them was wider, more careful. I watched from across the aisle, watched Catherine Harrington watch them with that pinched satisfaction, like she knew something was breaking and was glad of it. After the service, the usual gathering on the steps, the usual whispers, but this time one of the whispers was loud enough to carry. Knew it wouldn't last. City woman playing frontier, living alone with a man, pretending it's respectable. Annabelle heard it. I saw her back stiffen. Kieran heard it too. His jaw tightened. But neither of them responded. Just walked to the wagon in silence. I wanted to say something, do something. But what? This was between them. Whatever was happening, they had to work it out themselves. As they drove away, I caught Martha's eye. She looked as worried as I felt. Something was going to break. The question was whether it would break them apart or break them open. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Too much on my mind. Too much worry churning in my gut. Around midnight, I got up, walked out onto the porch. The main house was dark. Everyone settled for the night. But as I stood there, I saw movement. A shadow crossing the yard from the house toward the barn. Kieran. I recognized his walk. Couldn't sleep either, apparently. I should have left him alone. Should have gone back to bed and minded my own business. Instead, I followed. Found him in the barn, sitting on a hay bale, head in his hands. "Boss?" He looked up. "Jacob, can't sleep?" "Neither can you, apparently." He laughed. No humor in it. "No, haven't been sleeping well lately." I sat on the bale across from him, waited. "I'm making a mess of this," he said finally. "I don't know how to be around her now." "Why not?" "Because she saw me at my worst, broken and scared and weak. How am I supposed to look at her knowing she's seen that?" "The same way you looked at her before," I said. "With respect." "It's not that simple." "Isn't it?" "Boss, that woman didn't run when she saw your darkness. She sat with you, held you, Brought you back. You think that makes her respect you less?" Kieran was quiet, thinking. "My father never showed weakness," he said, "never let anyone see him struggle. He taught me a man carries his burdens alone, doesn't burden others with his troubles." Your father was wrong. The words hung between us, bold, maybe, but true. "A man who can't show weakness isn't strong," I continued. "He's just alone. And there's a difference between being strong and being isolated." Kieran looked at me. Really looked. "When did you get so wise, Jacob?" "Been married to Martha for 18 years. You learn things." That got a real laugh out of him, small but real. "What do I do?" he asked. "How do I fix this? Stop avoiding her. Stop pretending nothing happened. Talk to her like she's a person instead of a problem to solve. And say what? The truth, whatever that is." We sat in silence, barn sounds around us, horses shifting in their stalls, owl calling from the rafters. "She's not what I expected," Kieran said quietly. "When I made that offer in Harrington's store, I was just trying to help, do the right thing. But now I can't imagine this place without her in it." There it was, the admission he'd been avoiding. "Then tell her that," I said. "I can't." "Why not?" "Because she came here desperate, needing security. How do I know she'd stay if she had other options? How do I know she's here because she wants to be, not because she has to be?" I stood up, looked down at this man I'd worked for half my life. "Boss, you're the smartest man I know when it comes to cattle and land and business. But when it comes to people, you're thick as a post. Jacob, that woman chose to stay with you during that storm, chose to see you through your worst moment. Nobody forced her. She could have walked away, could have left you to handle it alone." I headed for the barn door, stopped, turned back. "She chose you, Kieran, not your ranch, not security, you. Maybe start trusting that choice." I left him there, sitting in the dark, thinking. Back at the cabin, Martha was awake. "Well?" I told him to stop being an idiot. "Good. Did it work?" "Don't know yet." We went back to bed, but I lay awake wondering if tomorrow would bring clarity or more confusion, wondering if these two stubborn, wounded people would finally figure out what everyone else could already see, that they belonged together. The argument happened on a Tuesday, week 8 since Annabelle had arrived. I wasn't there for it, but I heard about it after, from both of them, separately. And from the pieces they gave me, I can tell you how it went. Like most fights between people who care about each other, it started over nothing and ended up being about everything. Kieran had spent another day avoiding the house, left before breakfast, worked through dinner, came back after dark covered in dust and sweat from writing fence line that didn't need writing. Annabelle was on the porch when he rode up, waiting. She'd been waiting all day, Martha told me later, getting angrier with each hour that passed. "You're late," she said as he dismounted. "Had work to do. You've had work to do for the past 2 weeks, work that keeps you away from dawn to dusk." Kieran tied his horse, didn't look at her. "Ranch doesn't run itself." "No, but it's been running fine for years. Suddenly you can't spare an hour for supper?" "I eat when I can." "You're avoiding me." That stopped him. He stood there in the yard, hands on his hips, finally meeting her eyes. "I'm working, Annabelle. That's what ranchers do." "Don't!" Her voice shook with anger. "Don't insult me by pretending this is about work. You've been avoiding this house since the storm. Since you saw me fall apart like a child?" The words came out harsh, defensive. "Yes, I have been avoiding it, wouldn't you?" She came down the steps, stood in front of him, close enough that he had to look at her. "No," she said, "I wouldn't. Because there's nothing shameful in what I saw, nothing weak about surviving something terrible and carrying the scars of it." "You don't understand." "Don't I? My father woke up screaming 3 nights a week for 10 years after Gettysburg. I held him through every one of those nightmares. I know exactly what war does to men, what it takes from them, what it leaves behind. Then you should understand why I can't, why we can't." He stopped, couldn't finish. "Can't what?" She moved closer. What are we doing, Kieran? What is this? The question hung between them, heavy as thunder. You're my housekeeper, he said. But the words had no conviction. Am I? Is that all? What else would you be? I don't know. You tell me. Because I thought, after the storm, after you let me see you, really see you, I thought maybe we were becoming what? His voice rose, frustration and fear mixing. You came here desperate, Annabelle, needing security. How do I know you're not just what? Grateful? Convenient? Her voice turned sharp as a knife. You think I stayed with you that night out of obligation? I think you're scared and alone, and I'm the only option you have. She slapped him. The sound cracked across the yard, loud enough that Billy, coming from the bunkhouse, stopped and retreated quick. Kieran's head snapped to the side. When he looked back, there was a red mark on his cheek and shock in his eyes. I'm scared? Annabelle's voice shook. You're terrified. Not of your nightmares, Kieran. Of this, of letting someone in, of deserving happiness after everything you've seen, everything you've survived. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Then tell me. Stop protecting me from the truth and tell me what you're so afraid of. The words seemed to unlock something in him. Years of held silence breaking loose. I killed men, Annabelle, boys, really. Looked in their eyes and pulled the trigger because that's what war is. Murder dressed up as duty. Sometimes I dream their faces. Sometimes I dream I'm one of them, dying in mud while someone like me stands over me. His voice broke. How do you love someone who's done that? How do you build a life with someone who carries that much death? The same way you love someone whose father died leaving her broke and desperate, she said, tears streaming down her face now. The same way you love someone who answered a stranger's advertisement because she had no other choice. We all have shame, Kieran. The question is whether we let it define us or whether we choose something better. Silence fell, just their breathing, the sound of the night settling around them. Kieran sat on the porch steps, put his head in his hands. Annabelle sat beside him, not touching, but close. I don't know how to do this, he said quietly. Be with someone. Trust someone with all of me. Neither do I. Maybe we figure it out together. And if I fail, if I can't be what you need, then we'll deal with it. But don't fail before you even try. He reached for her hand. She took it. They sat there as stars came out, holding hands. Something settled between them that had been unsettled for weeks. That's what Kieran told me the next day, standing in the barn, still looking raw from it. I meant that kiss I gave her, he said, after we talked. Every second of it. Good, I said. About time you stopped being a fool. He almost smiled. She said she's not leaving in 3 months. Staying in Silver Creek whether I want her to or not. And do you want her to? He looked at me, more than I've wanted anything in a long time. That should have been the turning point. Should have been when things got easier. Instead, that's when the real trouble started. 2 days after their argument, cattle went missing. Not just a few head wandering off, 30 steers from the east pasture. Driven off deliberate. Tracks heading toward Blackwater Canyon. I found the evidence at first light. Rode back to the ranch hard. Kieran was in the barn when I arrived. Annabelle had come out too, sensing trouble. Rustlers, I said. Took 30 head, maybe more. Tracks are fresh, no more than 6 hours old. Kieran's face went hard. Get the men. We ride in 15 minutes. Kieran, Annabelle started. Lock the doors, he said to her. His voice had changed. This was the soldier now, not the rancher. Martha will come stay with you. Don't open for anyone but me or Jacob. What if... He cupped her face, kissed her quick and fierce. I'll be back, I promise. Then he was moving, getting weapons, calling orders, becoming someone else entirely. I'd seen this before, after the war, when he first came home, that hard edge, that cold focus. The part of him that had learned to survive by any means necessary. It scared me then. It scared me now. We tracked them to Blackwater Canyon, steep walls, narrow entrance. Good place for an ambush. Kieran split us into two groups, him, me, and Billy going in the front, Red, Tommy, and Alan circling around to cut off escape. The cattle were there, penned in a makeshift corral. Two men guarding them, looking nervous. "You're surrounded," Kieran called out, voice echoing off canyon walls. "Let the cattle go and ride out. No one has to get hurt." One of the men reached for his rifle. Kieran shot first, not to kill, knocked the rifle out of his hands. But the message was clear. The other man put his hands up. "Don't shoot. We're just hired hands." "Who hired you?" "Frank Carson, but he ain't here. Took off when he heard you were coming." Frank Carson. The name hit me like a fist to the gut. I looked at Kieran, saw his jaw tighten. "You know him?" I asked. "I know him." Kieran's voice was flat, empty. "Worked for my father, 15 years. We brought the two rustlers back to town. Sheriff took them into custody. They talked fast, eager to save their own skins. Frank Carson was the leader. Had a whole operation, stealing cattle from Knox Ranch and others, selling them 2 counties over, been at it for months. But that wasn't the worst of it. The worst came when the sheriff said, "Frank claims your father owed him, says he was promised land." Kieran went very still. "What land?" "Parcel by the creek, said your father promised it after 20 years' service. Got fired before he could collect." "He was fired for drinking," Kieran said, "and endangering other men, making mistakes that could have cost lives. I'm just telling you what he claims." We rode back to the ranch in silence. Kieran's face was unreadable, but I knew him well enough to see the wheels turning. Whatever Frank Carson was claiming, it had roots in truth, and that truth was eating at Kieran. That evening, I found him in his father's old study, looking through ledgers, papers spread across the desk. "Boss?" He looked up, tired, defeated. "My father did promise Frank land," he said. "I found the letter, dated 1861. After 20 years of loyal service, the parcel by Silver Creek will be deeded to you, signed and witnessed. But Frank started drinking in 63, after his wife died. It got bad, Jacob, really bad. By 65, he was a liability. Couldn't trust him with anything important. Other men complained, said they wouldn't work with him anymore." Kieran rubbed his face. "My father had a choice. Keep a promise to one man or protect the others. He chose the others, fired Frank, took back the promise. That was his right. Was it? Legal, yes. But right?" He gestured to the letter. This was a promise, written and witnessed. Frank gave 15 years of good work before the drinking started. Does that count for nothing? He made choices, boss. Bad ones. And my father made a promise. Kieran stood, walked to the window. I was 17, watching it happen. Part of me knew it wasn't fair, but I said nothing, did nothing. Just watched my father break his word because it was convenient. That's not on you, isn't it? I inherited this ranch, inherited the legacy, good and bad. He turned to face me. Frank Carson is stealing cattle because he thinks he's owed, and maybe he is. I didn't know what to say to that. The next day brought more trouble. Annabelle found me in the barn, pale, shaking. "Catherine Harrington came by," she said, while Kieran was out. What did she want? "To tell me the town knows. About Kieran and me, about the kissing, about—" She stopped, took a breath. She said people are talking, saying I'm his mistress, that we're living in sin. People always talk. She said if I had any decency, I'd leave before I ruined his reputation completely. Anger flared in my chest. "Catherine Harrington displaced you, took your place without a thought. Now she's judging you? She says she's protecting her brother's good name, that I'm making a mockery of respectable women everywhere by pretending to be a housekeeper when everyone knows what I really am." "And what did you say?" Annabelle lifted her chin. That gesture I'd seen the first day on the train platform. Pride keeping her standing. "I said I'm staying. That Kieran Knox has shown me more respect in 2 months than her brother showed in 6 months of correspondence. That if the town wants to judge me, let them, but I'm not leaving." "Good. Is it?" She looked uncertain now. What if she's right? What if I'm ruining his reputation? Kieran's reputation can handle some gossip. He's more worried about yours. Then he's a fool. I've been ruined since I stepped off that train, and Harrington rejected me. At least now I'm ruined on my own terms." I had to smile at that. This woman had steel in her spine. But the town's judgment was adding pressure, making everything harder. That night, Martha and I sat on our porch, talking low. "It's all coming to a head," she said. "The rustlers, the town gossip, their feelings for each other. Something's going to break. I know. Question is whether they'll survive it." I thought about Kieran's face when he talked about his father's broken promise, about Annabelle's determination in the face of Catherine's cruelty. "They're stronger than they think," I said. "Let's hope so. Because the real test is coming." She was right. More right than she knew. 3 days later, the rustlers struck again. Nighttime raid. Tried to burn the barn. We heard the horses coming, heard the shouting, grabbed rifles and ran. Gunfire erupted, muzzle flashes in the darkness, men yelling, horses screaming. I saw Kieran take cover behind a water trough, saw Billy get winged in the shoulder, saw one of the rustlers go down, wounded. Then I saw something that made my blood run cold. Annabelle, on the porch, holding the shotgun we kept by the door. She fired once. Warning shot, high and wide. "Get away from our barn!" Her voice rang clear. The rustlers hesitated. Didn't expect resistance from the house. That hesitation gave us time. We drove them off, captured the wounded one. The others fled into darkness. When the dust settled, Kieran found Annabelle on the porch, still holding that shotgun, hands shaking now but steady when it mattered. "Where did you learn to shoot?" His voice was awed. "I told you, my father believed in practical education." He pulled her into his arms, held her tight. "Don't ever scare me like that again. Then don't make me watch you ride into danger." They stood there, holding each other, while the rest of us pretended not to notice. The wounded rustler was young, maybe 20, scared out of his mind. "What's your name, son?" I asked. "Charlie. Charlie Carson." My stomach dropped. "Frank Carson's boy?" "Yes, sir." Kieran came over, looked down at the kid bleeding from a shoulder wound. "Your father put you up to this?" Charlie's face crumpled. "He said you owed us. Said your family took everything from him. I wanted to help him get it back. By burning my barn, shooting my men. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I didn't think. Pa said it was justice. Said we were taking back what was stolen." Kieran was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to me. "Get Doc Watson. Have him patch the boy up. Then Sheriff can take him." "Boss, do it." Later, when Doc Watson was working on Charlie, Kieran told me his decision. "I'm going to speak for the boy at trial. Recommend leniency." "After he tried to burn your barn?" He's young, following his father, making stupid choices because he believes in a lie. Kieran's voice was heavy, but the lie has roots in truth. My father did promise Frank land, did take it back. Maybe not legally wrong, but morally. He shook his head. "I can't punish the son for the father's bitterness, not when my own father planted that bitterness." "You're a better man than most." "No, I'm just trying to be better than my father, in this one thing at least." The trial was set for the following week. Frank Carson had been spotted 2 counties over. Sheriff was tracking him down. In the meantime, we fortified the ranch. Extra guards, night watches, everyone on edge. Annabelle moved through it all with quiet strength, cooking for the men, keeping the house running, never complaining. But I saw the toll it took, the fear in her eyes when Kieran rode out, the relief when he came back safe. One evening, I found her in the garden, just sitting among the vegetables, staring at nothing. "You all right, ma'am?" She looked up, smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I keep thinking about Boston, about my father, how different my life was supposed to be." "You regret coming here?" "No, that's what's strange. I should regret it. Should wish I'd never answered that advertisement, never met Gerald Harrington, never came west." She pulled at a weed. "But if I hadn't done all that, I wouldn't have met Kieran, wouldn't have found this place, this life. This life that involves rustlers and gunfights. This life that involves meaning, purpose, being part of something bigger than just surviving." She looked at me. "In Boston, I was drowning. Here I'm fighting." And fighting feels better than drowning, even when the fight's this hard, especially then. That night, Kieran came to my cabin, late, after everyone else was asleep. "Walk with me," he said. We walked out past the barn, toward the creek, silver water running over rocks in moonlight. "I'm going to ask her to marry me," he said. The words hung in the night air. Simple, true. When? After the trial, after this mess with Frank is settled. He picked up a stone, tossed it in the water. "I'm building her a house, Jacob, up on the ridge, by the cottonwoods. Started work last week." "A new house?" "Can't ask her to live in my father's house, not with all the ghosts, not with all the promises he made and broke." Kieran's voice was firm, decided. "We need our own place, our own foundation, clean start." "That's good, boss, real good." "You think she'll say yes?" I laughed. "You're asking me? Man, she held you while you shook from nightmares. Stood on the porch with a shotgun defending your barn. Stayed when the whole town called her names. What do you think?" "I think I don't deserve her, but I'm going to try to be worthy anyway." We stood there by the creek, two men in the moonlight, one old, one young, both thinking about the women who'd changed our lives. "My father left me a legacy," Kieran said. "Land, cattle, success, but also broken promises, moral debts, things done legal but not right." He turned to face me. "I can't change what he did, can't make Frank Carson whole again, but I can choose different, can build something new that isn't tainted by old mistakes." The house, the marriage, the life. He nodded. "Our legacy, mine and Annabelle's, built on what we choose, not what we inherit." "She's lucky to have you." "No, Jacob, I'm lucky to have her, and I intend to spend the rest of my life proving it." We walked back to the ranch. The house dark except for one light in Annabelle's window. "She waits up," Kieran said, "every night until she sees me home safe." "You could go tell her you're back." "No, I'll see her at breakfast when I can look at her in daylight and not want to—" He stopped, cleared his throat. I grinned. "Want to what, boss?" "None of your damn business, Jacob." But he was smiling when he said it. The night before the trial, Frank Carson made his move. The final desperate gamble of a man with nothing left to lose. He came for Kieran, came for the ranch, came for everything he thought had been stolen from him. And when the smoke cleared and the reckoning was done, nothing would ever be the same. The night Frank Carson came for us, I was dreaming about my own wedding. Strange thing to remember, but when I woke to gunfire and shouting, that's what was in my head. Martha in her white dress, me fumbling with the ring. The way she'd smiled when I finally got it on her finger. Then reality crashed in. Flames, screaming, the smell of smoke and gunpowder. I grabbed my rifle and ran. Later, piecing together what happened, I learned Frank had come with 6 men, not hired hands this time, outlaws. Desperate men with nothing to lose. They hit us from 3 sides, tried to fire the barn again, the bunkhouse, the main house. But we were ready this time, had guards posted, saw them coming. The fight lasted maybe 20 minutes. Felt like hours. I saw Red take down 2 men trying to torch the hay shed. Saw Billy, shoulders still bandaged, firing steady from behind the water trough. Saw Alan Peterson, the kid whose arm Annabelle had set, standing his ground when an old friend of Frank's tried to recruit him mid-fight. "I know you, Alan," the man shouted. "Your pa worked with Frank. You owe him." Alan shot over his head. Warning shot. "I owe Mr. Knox," he called back. Man gave me a job when nobody would, gave me a second chance. That's what I'm loyal to. The man fled. Alan stayed. That's when I saw Frank himself, riding hard toward the main house, gun drawn, face twisted with rage and grief and 20 years of bitterness. Kieran saw him too, stepped out from cover, deliberate, walking into the open. "Frank!" His voice cut through the chaos. "This is between us. Leave them out of it." Frank reined his horse. For a moment they just looked at each other. 2 men with shared history, shared ghosts. "Your father took everything from me," Frank said. Not shouting now, just stating fact. "Everything. I know, and I'm sorry for it, but this isn't the way." What other way is there? Law won't give me justice, won't give me back 15 years of work, won't give me back the land I was promised. So you'll burn it all down? Kill people? Turn your son into an outlaw? That hit home. I saw Frank flinch. Charlie's a good boy, he said, voice cracking. Deserves better than what I got. Deserves what I was promised. Then let me help him, Kieran said. Let me make this right. Too late for that. Frank raised his gun. That's when Annabelle appeared on the porch, still in her nightgown. Hair loose, holding that shotgun again. Mr. Carson, her voice rang clear. If you shoot him, I'll kill you. I swear to God I will. Frank looked at her, at Kieran, at the ranch burning around them, and something broke in his face, all that hate and bitterness cracking open to show the grief underneath. I just wanted what was mine, he said, almost pleading, like a child trying to explain. Just wanted what I was promised. He lowered his gun, slumped in his saddle. I'm tired, he said, so damn tired. The sheriff arrived then. He'd been tracking Frank, got our message about the attack, came with deputies. They took Frank without a fight. Took his men. The fire was put out. No one killed, though a few wounded. When it was over, when the sun was coming up over the mountains and we were all standing around looking at the damage, Kieran found me. He was promised land, Jacob, really promised, and my father took it back. Your father had reason. Did he? Or did he just decide one man's work didn't matter anymore because that man was broken? Kieran looked at the destruction around us. Frank broke, that's true. But who's to say my father couldn't have helped him instead of firing him? I didn't have an answer for that. The trial happened 3 days later. Whole town turned out. Courthouse packed to the walls. Everyone wanted to see Frank Carson finally answer for his crimes. I sat in the back with Martha. Annabelle sat up front with Kieran. Proper now, acknowledged. His hand on hers, where everyone could see. Catherine Harrington watched with narrowed eyes, but she was in the minority now. Most folks had come around, seen how Annabelle handled herself during the attack, seen how she stood by Kieran when things got hard. Respect earned, Martha said. The only kind that matters. Frank pleaded guilty, saved everyone a long trial, but the judge wanted to hear from victims before sentencing. Kieran stood, walked to the front. Your Honor, I'd like to speak. Go ahead, Mr. Knox. Kieran looked at Frank, then at Charlie sitting with his father, young face pale and scared. Frank Carson worked for my father for 15 years, Kieran said. Good years, loyal years. My father promised him land in writing. I've seen the letter, legal and binding. Murmurs through the courtroom. The judge leaned forward. Then Frank's wife died. He started drinking. Couldn't do his work anymore. Became a danger to other men. My father had a choice. Keep his promise to one man or protect the rest. He chose protection, fired Frank. Took back the promise. Kieran paused. Was it legal? Yes. Was it just? I don't know. My father did what he thought was right. But right and legal aren't always the same thing. What are you saying, Mr. Knox? The judge asked. I'm saying Frank Carson was wronged. Maybe not in law, but in spirit. He gave 15 good years and got nothing for it. That bitterness turned to hate. Hate turned to crime. Kieran looked at Frank. I can't excuse what you did. Theft, arson, violence. Those are crimes that deserve punishment. He turned to Charlie. But your son is young, following you because he believes in you, making mistakes because he doesn't know better yet. I ask the court to show mercy to Charlie, give him a chance to be better than his circumstances. And what about Frank Carson himself? The judge asked. Kieran was quiet for a long moment. 10 years seems just. Time to pay for crimes committed. But after, he looked at Frank, after, if you want to work honest, I'll give you a job. Not the land you were promised that I can't do, but work, wages, a chance to rebuild. Frank's face crumpled, tears running down weathered cheeks. Why? He asked, voice broken. Why would you do that? Because I'm trying to be better than my father, Kieran said simply. Not richer, not more successful, just better. And that means acknowledging when wrong was done, even if it was legal, even if it was my father who did it. The judge sentenced Frank to 10 years. Charlie to 2, less than expected thanks to Kieran's words. When they led Frank away, he stopped, looked back at Kieran. "I'm sorry," he said, "for everything. Tell your lady I'm sorry too." Kieran nodded. "I will." Outside, Annabelle took his arm. That was the right thing. Was it? I don't know anymore. Don't know where justice ends and mercy begins. Maybe they're the same thing, she said, when done right. 2 weeks later, on a Saturday morning, Kieran asked me to ride with him. "There's something I want to show you," he said. We rode to the ridge above the ranch, where the cottonwoods grew thick beside Silver Creek, where the land opened up to views of the valley and mountains beyond. There, among the trees, stood a house, not finished yet, but the frame was up, walls going in, roof half done. "When did you—" I started. "Been working on it for a month. Me and some of the boys. After hours." He dismounted, walked closer. 4 rooms now, designed to expand. Kitchen faces east for morning light. Bedroom faces west for sunset. Study for her books. Room for whatever comes. It's good work, boss. It needs to be. He ran his hand along a beam. "I'm going to ask her today, right here. Show her this house and ask her to build a life in it with me. She'll say yes." "How do you know?" "Because I've watched her look at you when you're not watching. That's not gratitude, Kieran. That's not obligation. That's love." He smiled. "Real and bright and nervous. I hope you're right." I wasn't there when he proposed. That moment was theirs alone. But Annabelle told me about it later, sitting in Martha's kitchen, crying happy tears while Martha poured tea and smiled. "He brought me here," she said, showed me the house, told me he built it for us, not his father's house, ours. "What did he say?" Martha asked. "He said—" Annabelle paused, remembering. "He said, I came to town that day expecting to buy nails. Found you instead. Watching you stand up to Harrington chin high even though you were terrified, something in me recognized something in you." She wiped her eyes, laughed. "Then he said he was broken and difficult and carried ghosts. Said he couldn't promise easy, but he could promise choice, his and mine, every day. Building something together neither of us could build alone." "And you said yes," Martha prompted. I said yes before he finished asking. Annabelle looked at the ring on her finger, simple gold band with small sapphires, his mother's ring. "I said yes because he's the first person who ever saw me for who I am, not who I should be or who I'm supposed to be, just me." Martha hugged her. "Welcome to the family, dear." They were married on the first Saturday in September, 3 months to the day since Annabelle stepped off that train. The ceremony happened on the porch of their new house, not quite finished, but close enough. The cottonwoods overhead turning gold with early autumn, Silver Creek running past, mountains purple in the distance. The whole town came, even some who judged harshest, even Catherine Harrington, though she left before the reception. Gerald Harrington didn't come. Had moved to Denver the week before, couldn't face what he'd lost, and what Kieran had found. Annabelle walked herself down the aisle. No one to give her away. She gave herself, made that choice. Kieran waited on the porch, me beside him as best man. His face when he saw her, I'll remember that look till I die, like he was seeing sunrise for the first time, like he couldn't believe his luck. The vows were simple, honest. Kieran spoke first. "Annabelle, I vow to build our life together on our own foundation, not my father's, not the past, ours. I vow to let you see my darkness and trust you with my light. I vow to choose you every day, broken and whole, scared and brave, now and always." Annabelle's turn. "Kieran, I vow to choose this life and you, not from desperation but from certainty. I vow to carry our legacy forward, honoring the past, building the future, living fully in the present. I vow to see all of you and love all of you, today and always." When the minister said, "You may kiss your bride," Kieran pulled her close and kissed her like the world was ending and she was the only thing worth saving. The reception lasted till sunset, food and music and dancing. Billy played fiddle. Alan brought his harmonica. Cowboys who could barely walk in a straight line danced with their sweethearts under lantern light. I danced with Martha, held her close. "You think they'll make it?" she asked. "Long term?" "I think they already have," I said. "Everything else is just living it." As darkness fell and the party wound down, Kieran and Annabelle slipped away to their new house. Their home. I watched them go, watched the lamplight appear in the windows, watched two people who'd found each other by accident start the life they'd chosen on purpose. 10 years later, I stood on that same spot. The house had grown, 8 rooms now, library added, garden flourishing, 2 children playing in the yard, James and Elizabeth. Kieran stood on the porch watching them, Annabelle beside him, gray in her hair now, laugh lines around her eyes, still beautiful, still strong, still choosing each other. Every day, I'd watched them build this life. Watched them weather storms, literal and otherwise. Watched Kieran's nightmares lessen but never fully disappear. Watched Annabelle become the heart of this community. Teacher, healer, friend. Watched them fight sometimes, make up always, keep choosing. That's what marriage is, I learned, not the fairy tale ending. The daily choice, the work of building something that lasts. Frank Carson served 8 years, got out early for good behavior. True to his word, Kieran gave him work. Not on the main ranch, too many ghosts there, but on a small parcel Kieran bought specifically for the purpose. Frank worked it honest, stayed sober, built a simple life. Charlie came home after his 2 years, worked for Kieran too, eventually married Alan Peterson's sister, had children who played with James and Elizabeth. Full circle, Martha said, healing in the next generation. Now I'm 74, sitting in my cabin with this journal almost finished. Martha's gone. Passed in her sleep 2 years back. I miss her every day. But I had 43 years with her. Good years. Rich years. That's more than most men get. Kieran and Annabelle are gone too. Both at rest in the cemetery on the hill, side by side. Same stone. Same date of death, just 6 months apart. Love doesn't cure everything. Doesn't erase pain or prevent death, but it makes the living worth doing, makes the hard parts bearable. That's what I learned watching them. I close the journal now, run my hand over the worn leather cover. This story I needed to tell, this truth I needed to preserve, not about rescue or redemption, about choice, about 2 broken people who decided to build something whole, about a woman who came west for the wrong man and found the right life, about a soldier who thought he was too damaged to deserve happiness and learned different, about love that wasn't easy but was real, that cost something but gave back more. I look out my window at the ranch. The house still standing among the cottonwoods, James and his family living there now, raising the next generation, teaching them the same lessons Kieran and Annabelle taught. That honor matters, that promises matter, that every day is a choice. The land endures. The creek still flows. The cottonwoods still turn gold each autumn. And somewhere in the wind through those trees, I swear I can hear them. Kieran's deep voice, Annabelle's laugh, the sound of a life well lived. I write the final words. May we all be so lucky. May we all be so brave. May we all choose love when it finds us, even if it comes through the wrong door at the wrong time in the wrong way. Because sometimes the wrong way is the only way to get where we're meant to be. This is the true story of Kieran Knox and Annabelle Porter Knox, not the legend. The truth. And the truth is this: they chose each other every day for 43 years. Through nightmares and rustlers, through gossip and gunfights, through joy and grief. They built a house on clean land with honest work, raised good children, left the world better than they found it. That's frontier love. That's the real thing, and it lasts longer than both of you if you build it right. I close the journal, tie it with string. Tomorrow I'll give it to James and Elizabeth. Let them know who their parents really were. For now, I sit in the growing dusk, listening to the creek, watching the lights come on in the house among the cottonwoods. The house that Kieran built for Annabelle, the home they built together, the legacy that continues. Outside my window, the first stars appear. Same stars that looked down on a September night 40 years ago when a woman stepped off a train into the wrong life and found the right one waiting. I smile, close my eyes, and let the memories wash over me like water over creek stones. Smooth, worn, beautiful, true. The morning after I finished the journal, Martha's niece came by. Young thing, just married herself, started asking about love, how you know it's real. I handed her the journal. Read this, I said. It'll tell you better than I can. She took it, read it over 3 days, came back with tears in her eyes. Is it really true? All of it? Every word? Even the hard parts? The fighting and the fear? Especially those parts, that's how you know it was real. Real love isn't clean or easy. It's choosing someone even when it's hard, maybe especially then. She held the journal like it was precious. Can I show my husband? That's why I wrote it. So people would know, so the truth wouldn't get lost in the legend. She left. The journal made its way through the family, through the community. People read it and saw their own lives reflected back, their own struggles, their own choices, because that's the thing about truth. It's universal even when it's specific. Years later, I heard that journal was still being passed around, read to children, shared at weddings, a reminder of what love really looks like when you strip away the fairy tale. I hope Kieran and Annabelle would approve, hope they'd be glad I told it true. I think they would be, because that's what they lived. Truth, even when it hurt, even when it was hard. They chose truth, chose each other, chose to build something real in a world that often settles for comfortable lies. And in the end, that's all any of us can do. Choose true, choose hard, choose love, build something that lasts. I'm 91 now, writing this final addendum with hands that barely work. The ranch still stands. 5 generations of Knox children have grown up in that house among the cottonwoods. Each one taught the same lessons, are honor your word, choose your people, build something bigger than yourself. James's grandson asked me yesterday what made his great-grandparents special. I told him what I've told everyone who asks. They weren't special, that's the point. They were just 2 broken people who decided to build something whole, who chose each other when choosing was hard, who built a legacy not on what they inherited, but on what they created together. That's it? He asked. Disappointed, maybe. Wanting heroes. That's everything, I said, because it is. That's the whole truth of it. Love isn't rescue. It's not magic. It's not fate. It's choice. Daily. Deliberate choice. To see someone's brokenness and stay. To show your own and trust them not to leave. To build together what neither could build alone. That's what Kieran and Annabelle taught me. That's what I hope this journal teaches everyone who reads it. Choose love. Build true. Last long. That's frontier love. That's the real thing. And it's available to anyone brave enough to choose it. The sun is setting now, last light touching the mountains, turning everything gold. I can see the house from here, lights on, family gathering for supper, 5 generations around one table. All because a woman got off a train looking for the wrong man. All because a soldier decided honor mattered more than convenience. All because 2 people chose each other every day for 43 years. I close my eyes, feel the evening breeze, smell the cottonwoods and creek water, and I swear I hear them. Kieran and Annabelle, Martha too, all the voices of the past mixing with the present, telling me I did right, telling me the story's safe, the truth preserved. That's all an old man can hope for, to tell it true, to pass it on, to let the next generation know love is possible, real love, hard love, love that lasts. All you have to do is choose it, every day, no matter what. That's the end of my story. That's the truth of theirs. May we all be so lucky. May we all be so